Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
All right. Thank you all for your patience. We're getting to the end of demo day, but it's just been an extraordinary day, and this, I'm sure, will be quite memorable as well. So as I was thinking about this conversation, I was reflecting on the fact that sometimes when two generational thinkers meet, something very special can happen. And it's not necessarily a product is formed or a plan, but it's an alignment of intention. And it's meeting someone who you feel a deep connection to, and sometimes almost a sibling relationship with. And I think that's how it went with Jony and Sam when they met 2 years ago. They found that they were thinking about and asking the same questions about design and about intelligence and about the role that technology plays in human life and should play in human life. And their subsequent collaboration, a company called IO, emerged from their shared curiosity and their deeply held sense of purpose. And together, they've built an extraordinary company of engineers and designers and thinkers, people who are merging hardware and software and intelligence in entirely new ways. And something really important, they chose to do it here in San Francisco, a city that has always been, yes, a city that I like to think is both a laboratory and a shop floor of human possibility. So Jony has said that everything he's learned in his life has brought him to this moment. And Sam calls this moment one of the greatest technological revolutions of our lifetimes. So, wow, those are crazy, heady statements. And it's our good fortune to hear from them directly. So we will just launch in. Welcome, Jony and Sam. Thanks for coming. So I want to start with that point about San Francisco. Why do you think San Francisco is the place where things that are brand new to the world are created? There's something about this place, about the light and the topography and the eccentricities that allow for some freedom of thought and creativity. But what do you both think about that? I think something that we all three have in common is we're not from this place. We weren't born here, but we came here and we chose to stay here. And we're not alone. That a lot of people are attracted to this place for very specific reasons. So talk a little bit about why LoveFrom, OpenAI, and IO were all started here.
Well, I first came here in '89, and I was 21, and it was the first time I'd been on an airplane. And I was struck on lots of levels, but one of them was just emotionally in my tummy. It just seemed, it was very unusual. It seemed improbable, a ridiculous place to try and build, I mean, given the topography. The extraordinary proximity to natural
build anything,
beauty.
Let alone houses and companies.
But and then we moved here in '92, and so in so many ways, I spent my formative, the last 30 plus years here, and one, I feel so mindful and so aware that I owe the city a huge debt of gratitude. I'm conscious about some of the things I've learned, and I know there's an awful lot that I'm not even aware of in ways in which I've benefited. But I love the city. I mean, I really, really love the city.
But do you think it allows you to think in ways that you wouldn't think otherwise? Do you think that it aids the creativity?
Yeah, I think the fact that it's I grew up in London, which was so huge. I like that the peninsula makes, contains growth. And so there's a density and a diversity that is, I think fabulously enabling for improbable and unplanned meetings and collaborations.
I just learned recently I was born in the Midwest and grew up there, and I just learned recently the first place I ever came was San Francisco when I was like a 3-month-old baby. My mom brought me on a trip here. I never knew that before. But I didn't come again until I was 17, and I was visiting colleges, and I thought it was the coolest, best place ever, instantly.
Yeah.
I have all of these like theories about what makes SF. The obvious takeaway is it is the freest, most creative, weirdest culture of anywhere, and that has led to amazing things. I don't think it's an accident that you get like the creation of Burning Man and the creation of AI in the same city. In fact, I think it'd be strange if they it's that same cultural force is what drives all of this. And then there's the question of like, why did the cultural force happen here? Like, why is this the place? Clearly, the natural beauty of the city and the surroundings attracted people that felt a certain way about the world. I grew up in a culture where the map was very much read from east to west, and there was this thing that San Francisco was like the end of the extreme end of the frontier or something. And I felt, and I think other people felt like that was kind of where, if you were still chasing some sense of like newness and possibility in the frontier, where you go. I think the weather here really matters. This sounds ridiculous to say, but
people don't usually brag on that.
What?
People aren't usually bragging about the weather.
I think there is something about like cold, crisp weather that is helpful to my creative process and helpful to thinking. I notice, yeah.
Yay!
I notice every time I come back from somewhere like hot and humid, and I immediately land in San Francisco, and I feel different, and I'm thinking more clearly, and I'm more expansively. And
that is interesting, Sam.
People rag on the weather, but like,
no, I got you.
It is maybe a little worse for the social life of a city. Like maybe warm nights are really nice for people spilling out in the streets and staying out late and running into each other. And there are definitely those nights in the summer where you're like bundled up against the wind, and you're like, oh, I wish I lived somewhere else. But I think it is just enormously powerful. Certainly the small size of the city, I think, is huge. Like, it does feel like when you are walking, every few blocks you're turning the corner into some other very different section of the city. And the people that choose to live here, they kind of know what San Francisco is like at this point. And so it's become this, maybe we should like talk about why the whole 60s thing happened here. But once it happened, that was a real gravity well.
Yeah, I think that it shaped the zeitgeist, but there's also something about the concentration of talent and curiosity that allows for new ideas to form. And it's one of those things that happens, it's almost ineffable, and you understand it better in hindsight, like Florence was in the 15th century.
The commitment to freedom is such a big deal, and like supporting people in their weirdness. Everyone talks about, well, I want this kind of freedom or that one, but I think freedom is freedom, and you either accept the whole thing and all of its weirdness, or you don't. People talk about this in Florence, too. Like, there was just a lot that got tolerated.
Yeah, I agree. So you guys had a meeting of the hearts and minds when you met, but it's quite a big deal then to come together and form a company and have a sense of the journey that was going to unfold. But there's something that I want to share with everyone, which is this process of ideation that you go through and your team went through and your team went through, whereby you didn't start by thinking about what is a product that will be native to AI. You actually put that aside and you explored other themes, like the nature of relationships, of humans to nature, humans to animals, humans to humans. You explored the nature of intelligence. You explored the nature of tools, how humans have used tools over the world. values and human rights. It was this really amazing series, almost academic series of explorations that you had before you allowed anyone to even think about what a new product might look and feel like. Can you talk more about that, Jony? Why do you start that way, and how does it actually yield a product at the end?
I think it's funny, the similarities with what Bob and JR were saying about, I think if you have a clear sense of, you have a predetermined goal, that just leaves me feeling terribly disappointed and dead, because if you do, you've got no clue about all the things that you've just missed. Mm-hmm. You don't even know that you've missed them if you're so focused on an end goal. And so I think, obviously a foundation for any creative practice is this sort of insatiable curiosity. And I think that's one of the things that, immediately I think Sam and I clicked, because I think we were, more defined by this desire to learn and explore than be right. And so I think that's what and that means that it's funny, I think a lot of very healthy relationships are characterized by you not saying very much, because you're actually interested to hear what somebody else has got to say, which means you're listening. And there are, I don't know, how long silent pauses can be sort of terribly embarrassing socially, or actually fabulously, a characteristic of incredible security when you're with somebody and you're just thinking. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think those were different manifestations of us just wanting to learn and sort of feel out what the opportunities were. But it was that lovely combination, which I'm sure many of you are very familiar with, which is, that's completely intuitive, really fragile, elusive, very tentative, and then with some robust structure. And that helps, we have a really rigorous research practice, I think.
Mm-hmm. And Sam, did your team participate in these learning sessions?
Yeah, we came to Jony and his team and said, hey, we have this ridiculous new piece of technology, like this huge, seemingly huge thing of computers are smart now. They can think and they can understand, and they couldn't do that before. And we don't know what that means, but we know that we are all living in the constraints of this same kind of computer we've been using for a long time, and that feels totally wrong and limiting. And we don't know how to figure out the right answer, but we think the world deserves better stuff, and we'd love to see if there's a way we can spend some time together and figure it out. And Jony brought us along on this journey that seemed certainly like nothing we had ever done before. It was not the way we worked. But we did it. There is more in common with the sort of research spirit and the designer spirit than I ever thought. And so it felt, I think, comfortable quickly to both sides. And their team had a lot of thoughts that we never would have had. Hopefully ours had a few that they wouldn't have had. And we just started talking about, what does it mean that this thing is going to be able to know everything you've ever thought about, read, said? What does it mean that this is going to be a sort of active participant? What does it mean that this is computers can now be proactive in a not annoying way, in like a really intelligent way, and they couldn't before. And we started talking and doing these research sessions about the things we were speaking about. And Jony and I were actually just reflecting backstage. We had a meeting after some of these sessions, the two of us, one weekend, and we were talking about kind of some of the learnings of that research and these ideas that felt very crazy at the time, and that they weren't all going to come together about what it would mean to have a computer that was built around this new affordance that didn't exist before. And finally, we have the first prototypes. I can't believe how jaw-droppingly good the work is and how exciting it is, but also now getting to have the benefit of hindsight and looking at the progress the process backwards, how much it's all in there, and how it wouldn't have worked any other way.
Yeah.
And then out of the end of it comes this extraordinary thing that all of the pieces, and no one but us and the teams will ever know about all of the like craziness that went into that, but I think they'll still feel it somehow.
I think there's, especially in large companies, that value predictability, leaders get really uncomfortable with ambiguity, and the creative process is unpredictable. And what was lovely, these months and months and months, these early times when we didn't have a sense of, are we going to make anything? Who knows? Or are we going to make a family of products? But to relish that time of not knowing and not feeling in any way this is a necessary evil to endure so you can eventually make a product. And that was, I love that part of the process. I also, the one thing is when you don't know what you're doing, the one thing that you do know as you're gently exploring and you have an idea, the one thing that is very clear are all the problems and all the reasons why it shouldn't exist. So it's really funny. It's all the reasons not to do it are very obvious and clear, and it's this sort of huge leap of intuitive faith that I really struggle and get frustrated with my inability to articulate all of that is tentative and fragile. But while that's uncomfortable, I've come to really love that place. And now, as things start to reveal themselves, actually that's better than the other one, yeah.
Jony and his team make these books as they're going through the design process. It would be a book like, it'd be like 10 books, each this thick, about like the history of shapes, or the design of cameras, or how relationships evolve over time. And so you have these like stacks of books, like this tall, many, many books. And each book is so beautifully and thoughtfully done. You're like, this will have nothing to do with the product. There's no way. I actually hope you do publish the book someday, because to see the thread through all of that the threads come together in a way that looking for, you cannot imagine that it's going to happen.
Isn't that
And then it
incredible?
all snaps into place. And like one day Jony calls and says, hey, we have a thing to show you.
And then when you have this something that's absolutely brand new to the world, and people see it and use it, it seems inevitable. It seems like, oh, well, of course this is what it is, and I shall now be using it. I mean, you've designed products that billions of people use. So there's something about this process that allows you to have filter after filter after filter of the wrong idea.
Yeah.
But it's also pretty special to have a partner who's patient with the process and is totally comfortable with perhaps not having anything at the end of a few years.
And shocked by the process.
I love it. I really do.
Okay, but I know everyone's here is itching for me to ask this question. So what, after all this time, what can you tell us that you're working on? What can you tell us about, because there is a thing, what can you tell us about the thing that maybe in a year or two, it will now be this inevitable, obvious product or thing?
Well, the reason...
Sam?
I'm going to leave it to Jony.
Yeah, you'll have more luck with Sam than me.
I know.
The reason I fell in love with Sam was, so I actually contacted Sam, which I've not done before, and I was very shy. The researchers at OpenAI are terrifying, really intimidating, until you get to realize that they are way more curious, way more creative, and the research team are absolutely spectacular, and the design team, our teams have gelled in a really conspicuous way. But what was lovely was what I went to with Sam wasn't a product, but it was a tentative thesis. It was an idea about, it was a thought about the nature of objects and our interface, and it was very general. And we didn't know whether that would lead to a product.
Do you remember what that thought was?
Oh, of course I do.
Oh, can you share?
It was to do with, no, I can't share it, can I? No.
Sam, what can you tell us about what you're building?
I'm like an easier person to crack, so I would try to. Jony is great at giving a non-answer. I get very excited and want to talk about it. I will say the vibe that I would hope we
We'll take
do.
it.
One of the things that I think has gone wrong with modern technology, and by the way, a lot has gone right. I think the iPhone is like thus far the crowning achievement of consumer products. It's an amazing thing. But one of the things that has gone wrong is when I use current devices or most applications, I feel like I am walking through Times Square in New York and constantly just dealing with all the little indignities along the way. Flashing lights in my face, tension going here, people bumping into me, like noises going off. And it's an unsettling thing. You know, it's like bright stuff, flashing, notifications coming, you know, like dopamine chasing here and there, and like short attention spans. And I understand how we got here, but I don't think it's making any of our lives like peaceful and calm and just letting us focus on other stuff. And an early thing we talked about with the devices we hope to build is if you have this really smart AI that you trust to do things for you over long periods of time, filter things out, be able to be contextually aware of when it should not really bother you, but when it should like present information to you or ask for your input or not, and you trust it over time, and it does have just this incredible contextual awareness of your whole life. You can then go for a vibe that is not like, you know, walking through Times Square and getting bumped into and having all this stuff compete for your attention, but like sitting in the most beautiful cabin by a lake and in the mountains and sort of just enjoying the peace and calm. And I think this actually just isn't possible in the pre-AI world of technology. I think this isn't possible with the current kinds of devices that we have. But I hope we build devices that can offer you back some of that spirit.
Yeah, lovely. So these devices that will be built at some point, when do you think people will be able to see them? Ish.
Sure. I mean,
Within 5 years?
Oh, much sooner than that.
Okay.
No, 5 years.
2?
I think even less than that. So I think going just to something Sam was saying, which is I know that you and I love, or we're very aware of what appears inevitable isn't. Yeah. But that sense of inevitability often speaks to something that is lovingly and well considered. And I can't bear products that are like a dog wagging their tail in your face, or products that are so proud that they solved a complicated problem, they want to remind you of how hard it was. I love solutions that teeter on appearing almost naive in their simplicity and I also love incredibly intelligent, sophisticated products that you want to touch and you feel no intimidation and you want to use almost carelessly, that you use them almost without thought, that they're just tools. We're the important ones in this. And and I think we're
hope
there.
When people see it, they say, "That's it."
Yeah, they
it's
will.
Like so simple. It's so, but then it just does. As we were talking about, AI can do so much for you that so much can fall away, and the degree to which Jony has like chipped away at every little thing that this doesn't need to do or doesn't need to be in there is remarkable. I remember he said once early on, like, we'll know we have the design right when, I don't remember, he said you want to like lick it or take a bite out of it or something like that.
Yeah.
And there was an earlier prototype that we were like quite excited about, but I did not have any feeling of like, I want to pick up that thing and take a bite out of it. And then finally we got there all of a sudden.
And then what happened?
And I didn't actually. But there's something about when the design gets like so simple and beautiful.
Yeah.
And like playful, for lack of a better word.
Yes.
That's something that's, I mean, I'm sure we'd all feel the same. I mean, there's not a lot of humor in the products that are being designed and made, particularly in this area. And I really sense very clearly there is a huge desire for us not to take ourselves quite so seriously, even though these are serious times. And I feel the same quickening of my heart that I felt when I moved here in '92. And it's been so infectious, I think, between LoveFrom's and OpenAI. There's a conspicuous momentum as a creative. Momentum is, I mean, you really notice it when it's not there.
Yes.
But before we knew anything about the products we were going to build, I remember very early meeting, Jony said, we are going to make people smile. We are going to make people feel joy. Whatever the product does, it has to do that. And I was like, yeah, whatever, Jony. Like, people just want to be efficient. It's fine. Obvious weakness of mine. But I am so happy that Jony pushed on that. And I didn't realize until we got the things started to come together how much that just doesn't exist in the current set of tech companies. And how lovely it is to have some whimsy back.
Yeah. And around AI, there's a lot of doom and gloom. There's a lot of doomsday scenario. And of course, there are a lot of negative unintended consequences of social media and some other technologies. So that part is real, but bringing back the joy and the discovery will be delightful if you guys can pull that off. So before we wrap up, though, I have a few quickfire questions for you. You don't know what I'm about to ask, but it'll be good. Okay, Jony, a few for each of you. Jony, what's one thing you use daily that you think is poorly designed?
Just about everything.
I know.
From my pencil to door handles. I mean, yeah, I just don't have very good ones. But you should have asked it the other way. Like, is there something?
I was going to say it the other way. Didn't know that you were going to say everything. Okay. What's one object that most people don't realize is brilliantly designed that gives you joy?
God, that's a
I'm
hard
sorry.
one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's hard.
Um,
What's one object?
A spoon.
A spoon.
Yeah. Spoons
That's
are
a good one.
Yeah, they're a means to an end, aren't they?
Yeah. Okay. Other than a spoon.
Spoon.
What's one product that you wished you'd designed?
The zip.
You mean a zipper?
Yeah, zipper.
Oh.
Is that an English word? A zipper.
Oh,
Yeah.
a zipper.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Okay, good one. All right. I'm going to Sam. All right, Sam.
Actually, no, I've got another one. A pocket. Did you know someone invented a pocket?
Did they?
So I always thought if you had pants or trousers, where I come from, that you got pockets for free. Mm-hmm. But you didn't. They never used to. And then somebody invented something, and they called it a pocket, and it's where you would put a watch. You know, like
pocket
watch.
Yeah.
Isn't that
That's
fantastic?
wonderful.
What did you do today? I did a pocket.
Well, that changed a lot of people's lives.
Well,
I'm
we've
very
all got
happy
them.
about that. I know.
Not many people
I'm very
here don't
unhappy
have
if I don't have a pocket. That's true. Jony, one last one. What's one material you've always wanted to work with but haven't had the chance yet?
I've only a little bit, but ceramic. I like to do I love ceramic.
Mm-hmm. Describe how you've used ceramic.
I've used it for very sort of functional reasons, like as an insulator, or you know, it's RF transparent, but it's very hard.
Yeah.
But not for. I love materials that are inherently modest and not expensive, and they assume value by the ingenuity of the craft process, and so they're given value by people in how they're transformed. So yeah, I mean that's why I love glass. I mean sand and you know what glass can become.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, Sam, what's a product you use often and just love?
I'll say the iPhone. With my earlier complaints aside, it is the most before and after moment product of my life.
Okay, Sam, what's a historical moment you return to for perspective? You have a lot on your shoulders. I imagine you have to have some mental touchstones to put things into perspective.
Everyone always is like, they're like, oh, do you think about like the Trinity test of the atomic bomb or something? And actually, I almost never do. The moment that I think about, that I thought about before we kind of made our big discoveries, and that I've thought about after, the historical moment that is most similar, that I wish I was in the room for, that I have taken the most going forward spirit from, is the discovery of the transistor. The transistor is my favorite analogy for what AI is like. It's like discovering a new property of physics. People kind of knew what they were looking for, but it was kind of accidental. The vibes of the people that made that discovery were very similar to some early OpenAI people from what I've been able to read. The scaling process of the transistor over time versus the way LLMs have scaled, the economic place that it had, where the transistor companies themselves, with a small number of exceptions, never got that big, but they kind of seeped throughout the entire economy and lifted everything up. And we don't think about this as a transistor company or that, but they're all over everything.
Right.
It was this fundamental enabling building block. And so that's kind of the moment I think about the most.
I could see why, because it allowed for a whole new world to be built upon it. Wow. Thank you both so very much for coming here and talking with us.
Thank you.
So much.